All right. Thanks for tuning in. You are listening to Gnostic Studies, and we would like to continue our Gnostic Runology series. Today, we're covering the Man Rune supplement, but as usual, before we get into that material, we want to look at the previous material, previous class, so we can build off of what we studied last time. So this is the handout the handouts are available at the bottom of the page, and the page is linked in the description. So if you ever want to download this, have it locally or print it out so that you can review it physically, that material is there. And oftentimes, at least recently in the past few runes, we've been updating the documents after we do the broadcast, so there is often a later version prepared, for example, for today, that may have more accurate translation or better wording or fixing typos and that type of thing. So sometimes it's better than the material that we had before in the broadcast. In any case, let's look at the Madr rune according to the historical authors. We were looking at first Friedrich Fischbach. He doesn't say much. He gives these shapes and says the M rune shows a man raising his arms. Right? These graphics are from another source, but just to illustrate what he's showing, or even crossing them. Seems to be something like that, crossing over the chest. Now Guido von List. That's all that Fischbach says. Guido von List, about 7 years later, he says that it corresponds to the male, man, the moon, to ma, meaning to mother, to increase, as well as empty or dead. It's got these two aspects. We'll skip the the poem. The folktale of the man and the moon is revealed in the 15th rune as the sacred character of the propagation of the human race. The Ur word ma indicates feminine procreation or mothering, just as the Ur word fa is for the corresponding masculine procreation, like the word father in English. Hence, we have here mater, mother, that's Latin, and otherwise as well as matter, and we have frater, or father. The moon is considered mystically as the magical ring dripper, from which every 9th night an equally heavy one drips, separates itself. So something's coming off of this magical ring, and which would be burned along with Balder, that is, with Nanna, the mother of his children, who was burned at the same time as Balder. So this refers to Balder, the son of Odin and the goddess Frigga, and he's associated with light, wisdom, and courage, best known for his dramatic death, which heralds the coming of the so-called apocalypse of the Norse gods, which we detail a little bit more here. But we're going to skip that for now to stay in context here. According to the mystical symbolism, however, nights can correspond to months. And so the 9 nights mentioned above denotes the time of gestation, or 9 months of human pregnancy. But since the concept of man, maiden, mother, husband, wife, marriage, menstrual, etc. are all rooted in the Ur word ma, as is the concept of the moon, with which they are all internally connected conceptually, they nevertheless symbolize standalone concepts. These concepts join together in their apparent unity, and according to the principle of the multi-united, multifaceted multiplicities, The conceptual word for this unity is also rooted in the Ur word ma and is expressed as manask or manisk, which is mensch or human in modern German. Therefore, as a unifying concept, the word mensch or human is only unisexual, meaning it's neither male nor female. Thus, the 15th rune embraces the exoteric as well as the esoteric concept of the high mystery of humanity and culminates in the admonition, be human, which is what Guido von List gives as the motto for this rune, be human. Sometimes it's translated as be man or be a man, but I think that's sort of deviates from the generic or general concept that he's mentioning here when he says that it's unisex, meaning it's regardless of our gender, it is about being a human being. Be human being. Not getting into the modern concepts with that, just in the 100-year-old concepts. All right, moving on to 1924, Ernst Tristan Kurzon. Exoterically, he says it means man, male, masculine. Esoterically, spirit. And generally, means man, humanity, truth. Now we come to the first of 3 runes which give symbolic expression to humans themselves and their most intimate relationship to one another through the sexes, namely the runes of man, woman, and marriage. So as we mentioned in the previous class, this is rune 15, 16, and 17, which we're going to be covering next. If one looks at the man rune, one immediately notices a certain resemblance to the human being, raising their arms towards the heaven in a certain sacred attitude, as is customary in certain magical operations. We recommend Perit Schu's book, The Edda as the Key of the Coming Age, which deals with runic magic in a practical way. We mentioned this book in one of our introductory classes as being one of the first books, at least that we have found, that gave specific runic body posture exercises. One of the first, or if the first that we found. So it's an interesting book, and he does give some interesting concepts related with the knot rune and willpower. The upper, so we recommend checking it out if you have time. The upper threefold division is of utmost importance in this rune because it symbolizes spirit, soul, and body. Each of the arms representing this trinity points upwards towards the light, longingly striving for it. Furthermore, one can very well compare the man rune with the posture of a person who has been crucified, and is not the God-man, in fact, attached to matter like unto a cross? If one wants to understand the man rune only as a synthesis of man, as phallus, then the middle beam points downwards towards matter or material, in which new life is to be awakened by him in order to make the words of St. John true. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not comprehended it. It seems remarkable to me that both the word man and the word matter, material, from the Latin mater, meaning mother, begin with the Ur word ma. You see him kind of re-emphasizing some of the information Guido von List mentioned as well. This points to the intimate and indissoluble relationship between man and woman. If one brings the os or ask character in connection with the man rune, then one has the emergence of an important meaning, and through language transformation it becomes man, ask, manask, mensch, or mensch, which is human being in German. So kind of re-emphasizing again. The corresponding verse of the rune song is again quite mystical. Obviously, the great giver of every creative force suggests to us the sun. In almost all mythologies symbolized as male, which also gives the male the procreative force dwelling in him. Gnostically understood, this force is that of the Logos, the spirit, embodied in the seed of man. See what he did there? The solar force is embodied in the seed, which can be used not only for carnal procreation, as most people mention, but should instead be used for the highest possible perfection of the human being, and to which the words of Christ clearly and distinctively refer. Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born of water and of the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of God. So again, remember, he's saying that this rune esoterically corresponds to the Spirit, and his quote from the New Testament also mentions Spirit and other esoteric terms. In order to achieve this rebirth from the seed, one needs certain help. This help can only come from someone who is thoroughly familiar with the Gnostic doctrine of salvation. Since it is not easy to find such a confidant, a hint should be offered here as an exception by which one can enter onto the right path. However, before one intends to make use of the Spirit in order to come to spiritual perfection, one has to purify the vessel of the Spirit, the body, and transform it into the Grail chalice. This regeneration and transformation is not easy, because is there a place where this goal is consciously worked towards? Yes, there is such a place, which is well known to me. It is the Sanatorium for Dietary Reform in someplace in Germany. Remember, this book's from 1924. Only when the body is complete does one start to work on the great word, which is helped by the Gnostic school of Pastor Dr. E.C.H. Pethman. The Gnostics knew and still know how to use the breath, let us remember the air rune Hagal, and the seed in order to spiritualize one's body during one's lifetime, and thus to transfigure it in order to not taste death. This refers to the transition into the subtle, substantial being. For the one who is well versed in applied symbolism, it is suggested that much is contained in the Hagal rune, combined with the 4 final runes, more than one might have dreamt of. And then he says Sat Sapienti. So the 4 final runes are the 3 that we mentioned above. This one, the man rune, the next one, year rune, then the Ehe rune, the 17th, and then the Gebur rune, the 18th rune, because he's working with an 18 rune system. The procedure can be taught to the worthy student even today in more or less difficult to access Gnostic schools. And of course, that's available now in books. The transmutation or white tantra is what he's talking about, making use of the creative energy. Gurdjieff talks about it also in describing it as hydrogen C12. Here one honestly asks oneself, are there many worthy students of this kind today, when raw sensuality reigns everywhere? For them we say, woe to the presumptuous, who would unworthily venture into these operations, which are magical practices in the highest sense, because immediate madness would be the inevitable consequence. Interesting use of the term madness here, which of course reminds us of Arcanum 21, the madman, the lunatic or fool. The method for the procedure can also be found through the runes by those who are qualified. But the entrance to the secret is well guarded, although the hints from this script go almost too far. Finally, it should be mentioned that the man rune was also erroneously assigned to the moon. So here he disagrees. This might be explained by the apparent male figure in the moon, the so-called man in the moon, but also by the unmistakable influence of the moon on the fecundity of human beings, beasts, and plants. So again, he has associated this rune with the sun, with transmutation, spirit, etc., whereas other authors associate it with the moon. So you kind of see a difference here there's a complementary aspect, and then there's a deviation or a difference where he's got a different opinion. The man rune, according to R.J. Gorsleben, 1930, letter M and number 15. The man, the human being, and at the same time, the rune tree and the tree of humanity, with 15 shoots, the arms as well as the branches reaching towards heaven. This rune has the power to condense and collect cosmic rays, which means pulling the spiritual down into matter. So that the mystery of humanity, the Immaculate Conception, becomes perfect by means of inspiration. Dr. Frederick Telcher's Ur-word is trieb, meaning determination, as well as drive, desire, urge, inclination, instinct, impel forward, propel, push, shoot, newly grown plant stem, sprout, burst forth, etc. The 15th rune is the sacred rune of humanity, and it introduces us to the mystery of being human. It culminates in the admonition, be human. The sum of the digits of 15, 1 plus 5 equals 6, and the 6 is the sexus, sexuality or gender, which leads us back to the 6th rune, the Kaum rune, the rune of sex. All procreation pulls something soul-related and spiritual down into existence, into its material form. The man rune depicts a man who reaches up to the heavens with his hands in the ancient prayer position. He stretches his hands towards the heavenly ones in such a way that he's striving for the connection with the divine by means of magical mantramistic actions. Striving for the connection with the divine by means of magical mantramistic actions. That's a term, mantramistic, that Perit Shu used. And I believe that may have even been one of his books, Magical Mantramistic something. One of the first authors that was not a lot of information in English, but interesting fellow. Thus, there very easily comes a comparison of this position with the one who has been crucified on the wood of the world. The man rune shows the basic idea of the human being as embodied and spiritualized. The three partition of the man rune upwards means the trinity of spirit, soul, and body. He's obviously repeating Tristan Kurzon there. Man is also the word of leadership, manager, the one who gives orders, commands, or mandates. Through the hand and the head, manus and Mannaz, through the soul, we become human. Because of the hand and the head, the human being is decisively different from animals and is able to grasp things around him. Very nice metaphor there, because can grasp them with physically grasp them, but also conceptually with the mind grasp them. Lifting the outstretched hands towards the heavens, the human being can collect cosmic rays. So you see here he's mentioning the rune body posture. Collecting cosmic rays really means condensing them. That is, drawing that which is spiritual down into the womb of the mother, Madr, so that the mystery of humanity, referring to the Immaculate Conception, can be achieved by means of influence, influx, inflow, by means of inspiration. Remember the 3 steps for initiation: imagination, inspiration, intuition. And that's Gnostic, but just noting the overlap there with the word inspiration, which he says helps us to draw down spiritual into matter, so that the mystery of humanity can be achieved by means of inspiration correctly illuminated by the Spirit. This power to condense is magic. The power to condense is magic. The man rune, therefore, is the rune of the magician, of magic, and of the power to unite. Uniting things together, condensing, crystallizing. Magic is power or might. So magic is this word Macht. I think that's how you pronounce it, which could be translated power, might. It's got other terms, but those are the main ones. Since both words are the children of the same root, which means to be capable, konen. Remember, that's related with the 6th rune, the rune of the capable. The magician needs to be capable, not incapable. Right? Can't say I can't. Even though I said it there, it was kind of a koan, right? The magician doesn't say can't, but can. What forces the human being to lift up their arms to the high ones is an effect of their man, the rune in them, of their admonition, of their Mannaz, of their reason, but not of their intellect, which continuously removes us further and further away from the love of God. Very interesting that he mentions that also in 1930. The intellect removes us further and further away from the love of God. Yet, while you practice pure love, God remains within you. The man rune according to S.A. Kummer, 1932-1933. It's always interesting to reflect on what was going on during these years in Germany. They're coming out with this. These guys they're on their stuff. They're into what they're into, and politics are doing what it's doing. And yeah, just interesting. The M rune, man, reminds us and whispers within us that we should become conscious of our inner God spark. Spark of divinity, we could say. The spark of divinity within, of our higher self, or what we call in Gnosis the inner being. Numeric value number 15. Man, the rune of breath, of truth, of power, might, and the positive force of males, even in procreation. Think of it as like the yang force. The man rune points to the spiritual, soulful union of man and woman in noble conscious procreation. So you see here he knows also about White Tantra. The man and the ma. It is the rune of the spirit, the soul, and of the body, as well as of awakening, working, controlling, forgiving, and of new spiritual acquisition, all of which is associated or indicated by the 3 emerging lines. Man comes from Manus, the first Germanic guide or leader, and from the Spirit of God himself. Manus is the mythical Germanic progenitor or forefather. Man and Mannaz are related to the mysterious words Amen and Omen. Even the famous Om, derived from the Old Norse Germanic root Ma, which means divine human, and spirit man. According to Herman Wirth, the one who is born again, the resurrected one, is the Son of God. S-O-N, Son of God. Ma, or Ka, the human being. And so, the man rune he's giving there with the word Ma, and the Kaun rune he's giving in an older version, which sort of looks like a modern uppercase Y. But we saw another shape of that Kaun rune, just to remind you of what it looks like. Let's see. Oh, I thought it was right here. Maybe not. Then I guess I can't remind you. Never mind. Okay, it looks like a straight line up and then one coming out to the right. But he's combining these, or saying that they're somewhat the same, the 15th rune and the 6th rune, as the human being. Therefore, his consecrating hand of light was also gladly represented as a human symbol in the Atlantean Nordic traditions. The rod of life, the staff, and the shape in the man rune shape was the emblem of the Atlantean Nordic priestess and judge, and later of the king and judge. The demonic or inverted form of the positive man rune is the negative year rune, which is the rune we're going to study in the next class. It's the so-called woman rune, which symbolizes error, delusion, and lunacy, as well as demonic love, lust, and greed, self-destruction through unnatural procreation that leads to torment and suffering. So we'll see these two runes in their interesting symbolism, which kind of reminds us of yin and yang. Of course, he's only mentioning the so-called negative aspects of this rune, of the year rune, but we'll see that it has also different symbolism. It's not just something negative. To consciously feel the positive man rune in oneself means to walk the path to spiritualization, the pathway to the subtle world, into the higher sphere. Be the truth and the life. Become a great man. Be the spirit God human. The man rune position has its greatest magical effect on the new moon and the worst at the full moon. That's his opinion. The man rune is the rune of divine magic and of cosmic spirit procreation. Boy, that sounds like something that would benefit us. The man rune position is a high prayer position in which the practitioner is able to gather and draw down to themselves high cosmic spiritual waves, which through inspirations illuminate and complete one's spirit more and more. So this is the posture here. We already know you take up the Ich rune position, military at attention, arms raised sideways, diagonally upwards, so that they make the human formed M rune position. Now one visualizes the shape of the rune and thinks sharply that radio-like waves of universal force penetrate into the back of one's head and flow through one's spinal cord. At the same time, the waves penetrate into one's hands, flood one's arms and body, surrounding the practitioner with waves of universal force. All these waves unite in the sympathetic nervous system and create a very particular, blissful, wonderful feeling. It evokes a ring or ringing in the practitioner and awakens a deeper universal knowledge and universal love. When these waves ring softly through the thighs and the calves, right, because they're coming in through the arms, the back of the head, descending into the sort of torso, then down into the legs. Then these waves ring softly through the thighs and the calves, under the bottoms of the feet, and flow into the earth. So this rune is very interestingly showing the idea of the human antenna that was mentioned in the beginning, sort of the base concept or root concept that the human being is an antenna, receiving energies from the cosmos that come in from above and descend into the earth, and that we can also receive energies from the earth, from below, and from above, and that we're kind of an antenna, but an accumulator of those forces, and based on how we manage those forces, we can either benefit ourselves or hurt ourselves, make things worse. After the student has assumed the man rune position and has concentrated their thinking and observing on the influx of universal waves for several minutes, then they magnetize their aura. This is done by singing the M, humming in a clear, deep tone, while slowly, rhythmically rotating in a circle in one place. When facing north and east, turn slower. Then when facing south and west, then you turn faster. Avoid too strong an influx of waves from the south and west. He says we can accumulate odd with it, which is a good, beneficial, in general, beneficial energy. We'll skip over some of that material. You're welcome to read it on your own and go to the rune grip. 3 fingers up, right? It sort of reminds us of that interesting posture that we sometimes see the one they call Jesus in, although the hands aren't as, the fingers aren't as extended. Very often the fingers are sort of concealing this symbol when they have the paintings of Jesus, but here you can see it extended, showing us the man rune position. Arms, the right arm stretched upwards above the head with the hand position as shown. In the sound formulas, M, M, Man, and Mame Mimo Mu. He gave those up above here as well. I'm pretty sure that I just scrolled over them. So he also mentions those with the man rune position. Thoughts are directed to universal love, cosmic spiritual procreation, and to the awakening of divine magic. The right hand can begin to burn and to glow. The practitioner has the sensation as if fine rays are emanating from the 3 fingers, and the whole hand is strongly charged with electricity. This grip has the power, or gives the power to the practitioner to banish danger. It is the grip of the reborn conscious magician and of the 3-fingered blessing and procreating hand of light. And it allows the practitioner to penetrate into the highest mysteries or secrets of runic magic. Okay. Now we've finished the historical review. Let's look at the man rune according to Weor and Samael and Weor. Weor says, the name of this rune, man, signifies human being, but also hand, from the Latin manus. It is one of the most important runes, and by its very form invites us to constant prayer. It is the human being who implores upwards to the great all. Mane Manu are also anagrams of the mantrams Amen and Aum, which are the ones that must constitute our prayers and must always express, I am of divine origin. Let us remember that greatly misunderstood and misinterpreted phrase, I am as much as you are. It does not signify establishing a comparison between 2 people. This phrase is symbolic. It means I, as a small microcosmos, am so much like you, immense macrocosmos. The person who is conscious of their value must never go about with a lowered head. They must never go far in an attitude of humiliation, but must instantly possess the idea that they are real life, flooded with ardor, with fire, with accumulated potency and potentiality, who dominates and who is not dominated, in whom reason vibrates, and this is in them, like an overwhelming force, and that while listening is firmly grounded with the forehead up, and with all the right of their personality and the full weight of their spiritual energy. The Hebrew Om, as a monosyllable, is translated as that which is true, that which is vital, that which is legitimate. And in that sense, we must possess the biblical phrase that is spiritually found on the banner of the Gnostics, I am the truth and the life. The man rune, which obviously is related to a statement that the Christ made through the one we call Jesus. In the man rune, the 2 arms rise in order to determine that love, divine sex, is our own transmuted substance. So you see here, again, talking about white tantra. No operation of white magic can be done without raising the arms, even if it is done mentally, to the great all, thinking that everything has a trunk, a base, And in doing so, we indicate that everything is a tree, the tree of humanity, the tree of life. So then he gives the man rune practice. The practice is to be done in the morning, facing towards the sun, at the moment it ascends in the east, in that attitude of raised hands as expressed by the runes, and imploring for help and for support. The practice should never be employed with a passive, useless, or in any similar attitude. Don't take up this practice or do this arm position in a passive, useless, or similar attitude. This should always be done on the 27th of every month from 3:30 a.m. to 4 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. So you'll have to figure out what that is for your time zone. Here is the corresponding prayer, which can also be done partially. I am the truth and the life, but I myself, without complaining to anyone, and without asking for anything external, without my prayer going outside, but doing it within. I am the light, since that divine spark which is God dwells and resides within me, and the purpose of my life is to liberate it, achieving it, recognizing it for myself, so as to make it objective before my eyes. I am health. So wouldn't this be nice practice to do every day if you were conscious of the words? The purpose of my life is to liberate it, achieving it, recognizing it for myself so as to make it objective before my eyes. I am health. I am a hand of the great all, through which it constitutes its will, and I, as a living antenna, must gather the divine forces of the cosmos without twisting its course nor adulterating its law. It's a little partial affirmation. The prayer that he gives is a little bit longer in his text, in his rune course, but this sort of synthesizes the essentials. And finally, the man rune according to a student of Samael and Weor. Samael and Weor says that the man rune represents man. That's in his book Igneous Rose. That is, he means the human being. And in Arcanum 2 of Tarot and Kabbalah, he says, I saw the stars and practiced the man rune. But he doesn't give a specific practice for it in a written form. But one of his students, who works on Glorian Publishing, excellent website, glorian.org if you haven't checked it out, had an internal experience where he was able to associate the prayer to the solar logo. So we'll read about that experience today because he gave a talk about it, and that's what we're going to look at. So he associated this prayer to the solar logos. If you're not familiar with that, it's very interesting because we can see now that other authors, especially authors related with White Tantra, associate this solar prayer or solar energy with the man rune. And then we see Viracocha associating it with the Christ. Now this prayer to the solar logos is related to the Christ, and Gnostically speaking, the Christ is related with the Sun, S-U-N. And he recommends, the student of Samael and Weor, recommends doing the man rune practice on its own or immediately after doing the Laf rune, which he had said, Samael and Weor had said to do on the 27th of each month. So we take up the corresponding posture and then say the prayer to the solar logos, which is related to the Christ. We're not going to go through the whole prayer, but it does say, I ask thee in thy sacred name, which the mysteries in the Gnostic Church have taught me. And Aum, we could say at the end, Om Tat Sat Om in a triple form. Om Tat Sat Tan Pan. And then he also just realized, he also says that Amen is a mantra. So you could mantralize that if you wanted to. Om, O-M, by itself. It's your choice. In any case, that's going to do it for our review of the previous class of the historical man rune. And now we want to look at the man rune supplement. Just want to check and see if we have any questions or comments. All right, just a few. And let's get into it. So, we already established what the rune corresponds to. Now, if we look at additional information that we can find, we see that Kummer, S.A. Kummer, 1932, 1933, he wrote a little bit about, so he had two books. In 32, it was the rune body postures. In 33, it was a book called Rune Magic, where he talked about rune hand postures, grips, or mudras, right? Ways of holding your hand and doing mantras and stuff in order to collect the energy related with the rune. But in that same book, he did talk about one body posture, the man rune body posture. And he says, we'll read it to you here. The practitioner should take up the well-known basic military position at attention, the passive, sometimes called passive east rune, facing north or east. One stands straight, the chin is slightly drawn in, arched back, the hands are held at the sides. The heels are close together, toes pointed outward, so the toes would be more like a V than they are in the graphic. Any rigid exaggeration of the posture should be avoided. The student will then inhale and deeply exhale 3 times with the intention of purifying and readying themselves for the reception of divine rune currents. That is, the streams of subtle energy that are coming from the cosmos that we can increase through certain body postures and mantras. One should raise both arms diagonally upwards in order to form the human M rune, as shown in the drawing. The palms are turned upwards and slightly cupped. He also says like shells. What does that mean? The thumb is pressed against the forefinger and you make like a little cup in your hand. A little shape that allows you to sort of maybe receive something. Hold something in your hand. Now begin humming M. With slow, deep breathing. One should begin soft and deep. Let the tone swell and rise to the highest pitch. Then sink slowly again to a deep tone. The M is to be hummed at all tone levels and in different volumes. It can also be sung in a siren-like fashion, imitating the humming of, or it can also be sung in a siren-like fashion, period. Or you could elongate that. And then he says, imitate the humming of bees. The whole formula is to be repeated for half an hour with good deep breathing. If your arms become tired, they can be held for short pauses in the at attention position, during which time, however, you should continue to meditate spiritually on the reception of subtle cosmic force. Okay, so at first, clearly, you're going to get tired. Your arms get tired. And actually, you don't want to push yourself too hard because you can hurt your shoulders because your shoulders aren't used to that in general, that upwards holding. So you need to learn, we all need to learn how to relax while in this position. You don't want, as he said before, we do not want to be in a rigid exaggeration of the posture. So we need to be able to hold the arms up. I know it looks like his arms are locked here, but they're actually, the elbows are actually just right before that. You don't want to lock them out. Just leave it just a little open so the energy can flow through there, the blood can flow. And so you get used to it. You know, you start, maybe you go for 2 or 3 minutes, see what you do, see what your pace is. Maybe you start for 60 seconds or 30 seconds, and you gradually build up. And if you do it every day for 30 seconds, you're going to be able to go up more, 60 seconds, a minute 15. But don't try and do a half hour all at once. It's going to be, you can easily hurt yourself by pushing your arms too hard. The subtle currents of universal force flood in the back of the practitioner's head, flow through the back and the sympathetic nerves, and gather in the solar plexus around the navel. At the same time, subtle waves of force flow into the palms of the hands, flow through the arms, stimulate the thymus gland. In the center of the chest, join with the streams of subtle force in the sympathetic nervous system, activate the spleen, and strengthen the gathered force currents in the solar plexus, where they fade away through the navel into the aura. To some extent, they also flow through the legs and then through the foot centers, the middle of the feet, into the earth, in the place where one is standing. The process is repeated throughout the entire practice session and brings about a strange, blissful, beautiful feeling, a fine ringing and vibration in the practitioner. The glands and higher centers of the body begin to sparkle, or that word is also bubble, sparkle like sparkling water, or bubble water, right? There's like a bubbling feeling. The inner self is freed from the constricting bonds of the body. Flashes of thought, ancestral memories, and astral perceptions emerge from within the practitioner. You can feel and sense the cosmos, the world, in yourself, whenever you hum the tones of the man rune. Every rune has a different type of current, a different strength, vibration, and rhythm. Those who understand it and learn to connect themselves consciously to the all current or universal current of the man rune become conscious magicians and masters of their fate or destiny. The man rune may be felt in other related types of currents by means of the following sound formulas: mame mi mo mu and am em im om which is just reverse of those mantras. So that's a new one here that he's added. Am em im om But the idea is the same, a vowel and a consonant. After ending the exercise, the practitioner should drain off any excess energies or too strongly accumulated energies through possibly false thoughts, thinking of something that's not beneficial to us or not beneficial to humanity. So those can be drained off, he says, in the following manner. Hum the M in a high tone. Right? Remember, he mentioned before that higher tones go to the top of the head, lower tones go to the feet. So by doing it in a high tone, you're going to start up top, and then he's going to say sync it to the lowest tone. So you take the man rune position, and then you go consciously willing, that is thinking that the waves harmful to the spirit's body and soul are bound to the tone vibrating in the body and flow through the body and fade away under the soles of the feet into the earth with the deepest tone. So you send them into the earth. Okay. After that, in the same book, he continues talking about what you can do once you can do at least 20 minutes of standing in that posture. So he says you should only try this thing, which he calls the Grail Chalice, after 20 minutes of standing in that position. Now you can try another one. Because otherwise, if the aura of the practitioner is not sufficiently charged, then you won't have the runic antenna net or network developed. This is absolutely essential for the formation of this, what he calls the Grail Chalice. The practitioner should again strike or take up the man rune posture. The hands are stretched upwards in the form of a chalice. The head is raised. So when he says the hands are stretched upwards in the form of a chalice, he's talking about cupping the hands and then imagining your self, your upper body, from your neck and your shoulders and your arms up, including your head, is like a cup that's able to receive certain energies that are coming down and accumulate certain energies. There. So the upper part of the body, it becomes like a cup or a chalice. The head is raised, the eyes directed serenely into the all. So in this case, he doesn't explicitly say this, but if your eyes are directed into the all, what he's talking about is looking up. So your head is tilted back, which you can see here in the drawing. Your weight should be placed on the left foot, while the right foot rests slightly to the side. Yeah, I'm sure you could try it with both feet, but this is what he's saying. In this way, the astral force centers of the body are most strongly activated. Due to this position, the rune stream, the subtle current of energy, is unable to dissipate sufficiently. So, because it's unable to dissipate sufficiently through just one foot into the earth, and so it seeks to escape through the navel into the aura, where it then, in conjunction with the fading energies from the mouth, forms the grail chalice. Because remember, you're mantralizing, and your head is aimed upwards. Standing in this position, the practitioner will feel a rather strong prickling sensation in and around the navel. Now the practitioner should sing the formula Om rhythmically, like, for example, the chiming of church bells, while imagining that from their mouth emanate rings of subtle energy which vibrate around the whole body and increasingly complete the grail chalice, which finally results in a strong magnetic center of light which attracts higher spiritual cosmic influences. It's important for this mysterious exercise that a pure, noble state of mind be in control of desires and efforts towards universal love and higher development. During the singing, you should think as follows: Fator, I call thee, with universal force stream through me. The grail awakens in me, threefold in love, a tear's oath I take. There's other translations of this, but this is the one we have right now. And actually, all of this is from this book. Shouldn't be any of it from 1932. Now, switching over to the Gnostic Rosicrucian supplement. So, dorking out on the internet, sometimes you find things. And in a Facebook group in almost 10 years ago now, we're able to find a FRA group, which is a Rosicrucian fraternity that Weor set up in Central and South America. It's called a Group for the Study of Master Weor, but it's in Portuguese. Well, run it through a translator program, which we can do now. It was posted almost like we said 10 years ago, and then again about 7 years ago by the same person, and it had this interesting picture, and it says this is the post, just translated into English: Gnostic ritual to invoke the solar logos. It's got this picture, which is a more recent drawing of a drawing that Perit Shu did. Another author drew this, may have slightly modified it. In any case, it says, preparation. Cleanse and organize the temple at will with the inspiration of how to arrange the altar according to the work. Burn a lot of incense. Standing in the center of the Armanen runic circle, in the man rune position, the 15th Nordic rune of the Armanen Futhark, face east and close your eyes. After being quiet for some moments, recite the invocation to the solar logos so that it penetrates your essence and floods your mind as follows. So this is a translation of the Portuguese. Universal and cosmic force, mysterious energy, fertile womb from which everything is born. O thou solar logos, igneous emanation, Christ in substance and in consciousness, potent life whereby everything advances, come unto me, permeate me, illuminate me, bathe me, pierce me, and awaken within my being all of those ineffable substances which are as much a part of thee as they are a part of me. Universal and cosmic force, mysterious energy, I conjure thee, come unto me, remedy my affliction, cure me of this evil or this illness, and remove from me this suffering, so that I may have harmony, peace, and health. I ask thee in thy sacred name, which the mysteries in the Gnostic Church have taught me, so that thou can make all of the mysteries of this plane and the superior planes vibrate with me, and that all of those forces unite to achieve the miracle of my healing. So be it. And then it's got a bunch of mantras here. We didn't list all the mantras, but those mantras are also found. I don't know if I think it's very close to the same mantras. I don't know if there's maybe one or two more in this section of occult medicine and practical magic, sometimes called esoteric medicine, which is called Curative Words, which was published by Samael and Weor. So if you wanted to look up all those mantras, because there's probably 5 or 6 lines worth of them, maybe more, check that out. Check that link out there. And then the post concludes by saying, finish the invocation as you wish. Now get into meditation. Consecrate the offerings, the bread and the wine, and consume the sacraments. So that's just from here. May have messed up the... This is the old link. I'm not going to click on it. I don't know if because of the website and linking directly to that post that they probably took it down, or changed the name of the group or something like that so that the link wouldn't take you there. But for a moment, it was linking directly. Anyway, this picture, very interesting picture, as we mentioned, is very much like one that Perit Shu drew in his book, The Edda as the Key to the Coming Age, but modified by another author. But kind of a nice drawing in the man rune possession. And so that was the Rosicrucian supplement. Now we're going to look at the Gnostic supplement here. So this is building off of what we started talking about in the previous class when we talked about the man rune according to a student of Samael and Weor. So this class is given on the Glorian website if you want to read it directly, but we extracted out the information that we thought was relevant for our discussion here. It says, in many of his books, Samael and Weor clearly stated that in 1954 he incarnated Eros, his internal Christ, the beautiful Cupid, which in Christianity is called the baby Jesus. He incarnated him in his manger, in his superior Mannaz, Tiferet, right, in his human soul, and started working with him. So in Gnosis, we have to incarnate the human soul before it's possible to incarnate the Christ. Let us remember that Christ, Eros, is not a person. It's an energy. It's a force, like electricity is an energy. But in order to incarnate this force, you need to be prepared. You need to build a church on the rock. Remember that the Laf rune, the rune prior to the man rune, in the numeric ordering, is related to lapis, the stone, the rock, and Peter, right? Pierre, Pedro, the name that means stone or rock. Peter has to work first in order for Juan, Ieomas, to come into yourself and work. Personally, now this is the author from the Glorian website, I like to investigate esoteric things internally through meditation. When I read something that the Master wrote, then I close my eyes and I ask, what is the Master saying here? I have had the habit of doing this for many years. Thus, through this method of meditation, I have investigated the process of the Master Samael and Weor, because he is the avatar and the Lord Vishnu incarnated in him as a baby in order to give the doctrine that we are teaching here. Therefore, I was always observing in detail all the steps that were taking place physically in relation with his internal development. Why? Because he stated everything that happens in the internal planes has to correlate with the physical plane. Otherwise, it is not true. If what we say, what we investigate, and what we experience does not correlate with the physical plane, then it is not true. If what we experience in the physical plane does not correlate with the internal planes, then it is not true. The two worlds, the internal worlds and the physical world, have to correlate. I was observing his life, the life rune, especially the last years of his life in Mexico, in order to see where the Lord is, in which step or level is that baby who was born in 1954 and who grew up, who is now an adult inside of him. In which level is he developed right now? I remember that year after year, I was studying him and that he was saying what he was saying and meditating upon it. At that time, when I was teaching Gnosis in the north of Mexico, the master invited us to Mexico for a special lecture that he was going to give in honor of the president of Mexico. He was going to discuss a book that the president wrote entitled Quetzalcoatl. Of course, I knew that Quetzalcoatl is the Christ among the Mexicans. Thus, I wondered if the president of Mexico would be there, since he was going to be honored. And I said to myself, okay, let us meditate and investigate. What has the president of Mexico got to do with the master Samael and Weor? The president was a Mason, and he knew about the doctrine of the Gnostics. So then I went there in order to hear the lecture of the master. I saw him and heard everything that he said in his lecture in relation with this book written by the president of Mexico. Thereafter I said, okay, if I find similitude here, it means that the president is the mind, is the head. Obviously, the intellect governs this world. Then who is the president of Mexico in Christianity in relation with the Christic drama? And I said to myself, of course, he is Pilate, Pontius Pilate. Understand me, I'm not stating that the president was literally Pontius Pilate, but for me he was symbolizing or representing the mind. Thus I was there and I saw the master showing his own mastery. Ecce homo, behold man, the man rune there giving a tremendous beautiful lecture with a lot of wisdom. Many ambassadors from different countries were there listening, and they were surprised to hear all of the knowledge from the mouth of Master Samael and Weor for the first time. Then I said, well, this moment is very crucial because if the president of Mexico represents Pontius Pilate, that means that the master is going to be crucified. And then I returned to the north of Mexico very preoccupied with this. Months later, I received a phone call. The master was sick. Yes, he was in his Christic process because he died in 1977. And that event that happened in Mexico was the same year, in the month of September. But he was looking very weak physically. So it was not a surprise to me when somebody called from Mexico and said, the master's pretty sick, please pray for him. Then I started doing chains for him because I knew that he was in the process of being crucified and dying. Eventually he had to die. On the 24th of December 1977, one of his daughters called me very preoccupied and asked, please do chains for him. He's talking about prayer chains. He's very crucial, very sick. And I said, oh, what's happening? Well, he was in the hospital, but now he's not. He's in our home, but really he needs a lot of help. And then I remember performing a prayer to the Solar Logos. All right, so now we're tying it all together. That day, the 24th of December, we performed a special work for him. At the end, we were doing a chain, and in the chain, I was performing this prayer, which some of you might know, which is written in the book Occult Medicine, sometimes also called Esoteric Medicine. Thus, after the special work we did in order to attract the solar force, the Christ, as I knew he, the Solar Logos, was passing through a process in the body of the Master. So together with all the brothers and sisters who were holding the chain, we said, O thou Solar Logos, igneous emanation, substance and consciousness of Christ, powerful life whereby everything advances, go unto him, penetrate him, enlighten him, bathe him, go through him, awaken within himself, within his being, all of those ineffable substances that are as much a part of thee as a part of him. Universal and cosmic force, mysterious energy, I conjure thee, go unto him, remedy his affliction, cure him from his illness, put apart from him his suffering, so that he may have harmony, peace, and health. I ask thee in thy sacred name, which the mysteries and the Gnostic Church have taught me, so that thou can make vibrate within him all of the mysteries of this plane and the superior planes, so that all of those forces together may achieve the miracle of his healing, so be it. Of course, as you can read, I changed me to him in the text of the prayer. So we said it a total of 3 times, concentrating on the solar light, on the cosmic Christ, in order to send the energy to him. But then when I was doing that chain with those brothers and sisters, my third eye, my clairvoyant eye, started to spin, and a great picture came to my head. What did I see? I saw the man rune, the Lord, the living Christ, crucified on the cross, as you see him in many paintings. When I saw that, I saw the Lord, the Christ, with my third eye, pronouncing the last word and dying on the cross. This is why I associate the man rune with that prayer. This was so disturbing to me because I was asking for life, not for death, and when I saw that, I immediately pronounced the mantra Aum 3 times, that is to say, and said, this is it. Then I asked, what time is it? And they said 8:20 p.m. on the 24th of December. Later, after that day, after midnight, I received a call, and his daughter told me, please come to the funeral. So this is how internally, this is very emotional for me to say this. I kept this to myself for many years, but now I'm sharing this because there are many speculations about the transition of the Master Samael. I never like to talk about it, but I said I have to talk about this, even though it is very stressful for me, because I saw the Lord, the living Christ, dying there at the same time as he was dying physically. So it's interesting, his experience. So after the prayer, right? When I went to Mexico for his funeral, I asked, what time did he die? And they told me at 8:20. So that was too much for me. After that, I continued with the habit of meditating on everything that I had read or that I had studied. Moreover, I was a witness of his resurrection. I was a witness of his ascension, and that is why I talk with certainty, because I saw these things. I understand that the Logos, the Christ, is a force that incarnates in order to become human, in order to self-realize in any initiate. As he was incarnated in him and self-realized in him, the Logos Samael promised to return, as he promised in his books, but I always understood and comprehended that the one that was talking through him was the Lord, the Christ, the Logos. And I am so sure, not because I read it or because somebody told me, but because I saw him many times in the internal worlds. Many times I found him in the internal planes. In a previous lecture, I stated that a master, a divine being, said, I manifest myself through these hands. Remember that the man rune is associated with the hands. But I forgot to tell you that the hands are at the very end of the arms, and they are part of Chesed and Geburah, the monad. The hands are related with Tiferet, the human soul. So when this being was telling me I manifest myself through these hands, he was saying that he manifests through the soul, Tiferet. So it's good to develop the soul internally in order for the Lord to manifest. Remember, when you see your hands or the hands of anybody internally, these represent the soul. This is precisely what we have to understand. The spirit always manifests through the soul, but remember that the hands do not move. They do not indicate anything. Remember that the hands do not move. If the hands do not move, they do not indicate anything. If the brain does not command them. All right, I'll reread it. But remember that the hands do not move. They do not indicate anything if the brain does not command them. This is a deep symbol that you have to understand, because every monad has its own hands, his own soul, that you have to know how to manifest or how to handle. This is related with the man rune and to this prayer. When we practice the man rune, we have to perform or pronounce this prayer that I recited that day. Of course, we have to recite it as follows. O thou solar Logos, igneous emanation, substance and consciousness of Christ, powerful life whereby everything advances, come unto me and penetrate me, enlighten me, bathe me, go through me, and awaken within my being all of those ineffable substances that are as much a part of thee as a part of me. Universal and cosmic force, mysterious energy, I conjure thee. Come unto me. Remedy my affliction. Cure me from this illness and put apart from me this suffering, so that I can have harmony, peace, and health. I ask thee in thy sacred name, which the mysteries of the Gnostic Church have taught me, so thou can make vibrate with me all of the mysteries of this plane and the superior planes, and that all of those forces together may achieve the miracle of my healing. So be it. This and other marvelous prayers are written in the New Prayer Book as well as in the Occult Medicine book, also called Esoteric Medicine. I know for sure that the man rune is associated with the prayer of the Solar Logos because I experienced it, I saw it. The man rune is precisely the Lord crucified on the cross. It is a way of praying. The symbolism of the Apostle Peter, the man and year runes. Let us understand the man rune represents the Son of Man, Jesus Christ, who was crucified on the cross, the right side up cross, in the way we know it. However, the Apostle Peter's crucifixion is related to the year rune because he is the one that is crucified on the upside down cross. Thus, Peter represents the opposite of the man rune, the year rune. All right, that's the rune we're going to study next. So this is like a teeny little preview about that topic. This means that in order to reach the right side up level, you first have to descend to perform the upside down cross with all the mysteries of alchemy, the pineal gland, etc. Now the crucifixion of Andrew, Peter's brother, is different because Andrew was crucified on the X-shaped cross, which also relates to the sexual force and which we discuss in the lecture on the Gibor rune. That's the 18th rune. We'll see that is, of course, interrelated with all these things. We will look at that after we look at the Ehe rune. It's very important to understand and comprehend that the sexual potency of the Laf rune, which is life, the stone, lapis, the grail, comes from the kidneys. Chinese medicine says the same thing, or Eastern medicine, we should say. The kidneys are related to Andrew and to the X-shaped cross, the force of the kidneys that gives strength, sexual strength, to man and woman. But the hormones of the pineal gland also relate to the strength of the sexual force. When a man has a very strong pineal gland, Peter, it is because his sexual force is very strong and vice versa. Thus we find that Peter and Andrew are brothers, since they both relate to sexual potency. Of course, the esotericism of the mystery of Andrew and the cross is related with other aspects of the doctrine, which is the annihilation of the ego. The sufferings the initiate has to pass through in order to crystallize the soul within themselves. In order to destroy all the enemies of the Lord, which are our defects, vices, and errors, he has to utilize the cross, the potency of the kidneys, in the sexual act. This is the mystery of Andrew. Again, he's talking about white tantra, learning how to connect and disconnect without losing the energy. Peter is different. Although he always assists us in the different developments that we need in order to acquire on the esoteric path. Remember that Peter is called the first apostle. Why? Because first we have to build the church. And what is it to build the church? It is to perform the year rune, the descent into the ninth sphere, in order to work with the Laf rune, life, and build the solar, astral, mental, and causal bodies. They are called solar bodies because they're created with the transmuted sexual force. The one who's doing that work is Peter. And so he said, Behold, I lay in Zion a chief cornerstone, elect, precious, and he that believeth on him shall not be confounded. Unto you, therefore, who believe he is precious, but unto them who be disobedient, the stone which the builders disallowed, the same is made the head of the corner, and a stone of stumbling, a rock of offense. That's from 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 6 through 8. Who are the builders? Well, if you're speaking in esoteric terms, they are the Masons, those who work with the stone. Right? He's talking about esoteric symbolism. He doesn't mean literally the Freemasons. He means the Masons, meaning someone who works with stone. We say that there are many Masons and Masonic lodges in this day and age, but they do not transmute. They do not practice any sexual magic. They reject the stone, the rock, because they do not know about it, although they might do black tantra. Many religions do the same, such as the Catholic Church. The monks do not marry, and if they do marry, they do not transmute. So they are also rejecting the stone, which is Laf, the Grail. The Holy Grail for a monk is a woman, and the stone for a nun is a man. If we're not transmuting, then we're not working with Peter, who says in the Pistis Sophia, "My Lord, we will not endure this woman, for she takes the opportunity from us and have let none of us speak, but she discourses many times." This means that Peter cannot speak or build any church without the woman. We need the woman, the Grail, and the man, the stone, in order to build the church with Peter, and Peter knows it. That is why he says, "Crucify me upside down so that the future initiates will understand that I am in the pineal gland and that I have to descend into the ninth sphere," which is the woman, the Holy Grail. The ninth sphere, Yesod. We mentioned it before. Of course, the handouts are here if you wanted to download them at the bottom of the page. The link is in the description of the video. With that, we want to open it up for questions and comments because that's the end of what we wanted to present to you. So if you have anything that jumped out to you or anything you want to mention, now's the time. Well, just wanted to say that it doesn't look like there's any questions or comments right now. We do want to wait because the lag, the delay that exists between when the broadcast goes out, when you receive it, and then when you got a little time to type something and then send it out back to us. Just trying to buy some time there. Just want to say that we do appreciate you sharing time with us and watching the video. And hopefully it's been useful. Again, if we put together the pieces of what we've studied today, then we can see that just like the student of Samael and Weor used this prayer to pray in this position, the man rune position, for Samael and Weor, and said, "Go unto him," right? We could do that for another person. We could do that for friends or family who are sick or anybody. We can do it for ourselves when we say, "Come unto me," or we can say, "Go unto them," to the other person if they need help. So it's a very interesting way to use this rune through this prayer related with the solar logos so that we can help others to heal. Okay, well, here we got a question. Where is the best place to begin? I have been following for about a year, and I fear I've begun to stray. Okay, the best place to begin is on the website here. I mean, if you're talking about doing the runes, the preliminary rune practices. This talks about, in general, about how to do the Is rune or Ich rune, and just understanding the concept of absorbing the energies and how we can take a body posture and concentration, focusing on something, and start to receive those energies, and then just start a little practice and do, let's say, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you can say, you know what, I can afford that, and then make yourself do it, whether it's in the morning or at night before you go to bed. You know, in general, I can say I have 3 minutes for something. Maybe not all the time, right? If I'm running late or whatever, but before I go to bed, can I take 3 minutes and do the rune posture? And then to this, I would add, once you're comfortable with this rune, the Is rune, the standing Is, Ich, or I rune position, then start doing them in alphabetical order. Fa. Do the Fa rune next. and then start adding runes on. You can practice one for a couple days or a couple weeks, get used to it, get comfortable with it, and then go from there. To clarify, how to re-engage with the Gnostic practices in general. A deal of life stunted my practices. Yeah, I mean, really, it's a matter of willpower, right? And just saying, all right, I need to do some meditation. I need to do some Gnostic practices. I need to do something. So what is it that you need to do? That's up to you. But we suggest the runes. They're wonderful. They give results. And if you can get to about a 10-minute window, which is not a lot of time when you reflect on it, you can get a lot of energy back from it. Another rune, if you feel like you need more willpower, that's really nice, is this Dorn rune. Dorn. Let me show you the posture. One hand on the hip. The Germans do it on the left. Gnostics do it, and Rosicrucians on the right. Do that one, and then the mantras Tate Tito Tu. You don't need to do it loud. You can just whisper Tate Tito Tu, and concentrate on what you're doing. Visualize yourself as the shape, the shape of the rune, and then start gathering that up, and then start praying, start developing that relationship. Ask the inner divinity, inner being, my God, please help me with whatever it is that you need. Help me to stay on the path. Help me so that I don't go astray. Help me so that I can remember you. Help me so that I, whatever it is particular to yourself that you want to work on. And just start developing that relationship. Listen to what you hear afterwards. Because sometimes we pray and then the mind immediately takes us away. And we don't hear the answer because the mind took us away. So that means we need to work on the mind, and that's another practice, but the runes can help us with that. We recommend also to fight against the mind and its overuse by decreasing or selecting the impressions that we receive. I know we're on various platforms to present this material to you, but we also at the same time recommend not being on those platforms all the time, because we get a lot of impressions, and then it's a lot of information that needs to be processed and translated and understood and sort of categorized properly, meaning not allowing the ego to take it and use it. And that takes extra time that we may or may not have, in the sense of, we only have so much time in the day. You can look at social media for half an hour or even 10 minutes and receive so many impressions that it might take 2 or 3 hours to process them all and sort of understand, depending on what kind of things we're looking at. So we recommend, being out in nature, taking time to be present. Drinking tea can be really nice. You get some high-grade tea and make that a little moment that you're having tea by yourself or with someone else, and you're appreciating that experience of the tea. But you can do it with anything, with eating any food, or just walking. Just slow down. A lot of stuff nowadays is we're in a rush, right? Got to rush to get here, got to rush to get there, got to be efficient, we got to be maximizing production. It's just the opposite of remembering divinity, of being thankful, of, because it's sort of rushing through all that. And yes, we don't want to be wasting time, but we have to figure out how to be balanced in this modern sort of rushing world, and how to do that consciously, remembering ourselves. So again, remembering to connect with our inner divinity, doing a little bit of practices every day, 5 minutes, 10 minutes at the beginning, and seeing what we can build up to once we normalize it. And this is what I do before I go to bed. This is what I do when I get up in the morning. This is what I do at lunch, or this is what I do whenever works for you. But pick a time and start doing it. Yeah, and you mentioned also another comment that they have really good incense. We do recommend the excellent incense they have there at Glorian. There's one called Shugpa that's excellent for cleaning. There's just there's lots of them, but that Shugpo one will just point that out. But they've got really nice incense too. That's another thing you can do. Just light an incense, smell it, be present with it, appreciate the moment. What did it take to receive that incense? Just kind of reflect on being in human form on this planet right now, and that experience. It can be a very nice experience that we have when we're not identified with a bunch of egos. So that being said, again, I want to thank you guys for listening, for your time, for your attention. As always, we want to wish you the best in your esoteric work. And so shoot us an email or leave a comment if you need some advice or some specific question answered. And with that, we'll sign off.